The child was asking for large quantities of cold water and seemed to desire the attention of her parents more than usual. Okay, the asking for large quantities of cold water is really important. So thirst is in an acute infection is also a huge thing to ask about. Again, you'll have a whole group of remedies that are more thirsty when sick and a whole group of remedies that are less thirsty. And then some that are asking for small sips of water often versus some that are wanting for large quantities often or large quantities infrequently. And I'll tell you that of the two of the three swine flu cases that I had, this I think being one of them, the things that really brought me to the remedy was thirst. So in this case, this was the key to the case, was the fact that she wanted, that's what clinched it for me anyway in my mind, was that she wanted large quantities of cold water. It's very specific for one particular remedy. It's very strong for that remedy. I had another child who was asking for small sips of water, but very frequently. And I prescribed a remedy based on that, based on other things, but based on that. And that child also recovered started recovering within a few minutes and was better within 2 to 3 days. Thirst is under stomach. Stomach, thirst, cold water by drinking, what do we want? Large quantities for thirst, large quantities for and then I'll also go into generalities. That's like a big catch-all category under food and drink. So generalities, food and drink, cold, drinks water, desires. And large quantities of cold water is a second subcategory, but there's only 3 remedies there, so I'm gonna ignore it. When you get these rubrics that have 1 or 2 or 3 remedies, they're sometimes useful, but oftentimes not as useful. So we've got stomach, thirst, large quantities for, and generalities, food and drinks, cold, drinks, water, desires. It's like kind of talking backwards. If you look at it backwards, it's desires, water, drinks, cold, drinks, food. And she desires the attention of her parents more than usual. So again, another great question to ask whether it's acute or chronic is, does the person want more attention or less attention? Does they want to be left alone? Does the attention make them feel better or worse? Do they have an aversion to it? So there's some remedies that it's so intense that the child has an aversion to being looked at. Like you look at the child and they'll start crying and getting angry. And so this is also a very, very important factor to look for. So you can see, I don't care what her temperature, I mean, we're not looking at, we need to know this, but what's going to help me get to the remedy is not the fact that she has a cough and a fever. It's the fact that she wants attention. It's the fact that she wants cold drinks often. It's the fact that whatever symptom she has, in this case cough, is worse than sleep. So you have to start training yourself to think in all these details in order to get the right remedy. So the last one was attention. So if we go under mind, company, desire for, and you could also combine that with alone while aggravate. So they're worse when they're alone, they're better with company, or they desire the company. Oh, the other one is you could look at is consolation. So that's like a form of consolation, the company. So consolation ameliorates. Everything in homeopathy we call aggravates or ameliorates. Ameliorates makes it better, aggravates makes it worse. So I'm going to combine mind, company, desire for, alone while aggravates, and mind, consolation ameliorates. So I'm just going to put better company. And that's 108 remedies right there.
I always struggle with when I'm being treated. This has been very enlightening, because for me, when you ask, what are your symptoms, I don't think needing some attention
Right.
is a symptom. I think my throat hurts and my
Right.
eyes are watering.
Right.
And like, well, do you crave lukewarm water or hot water? I didn't think
Right.
of that as a
Right.
symptom. I'm
So
just
the
thirsty.
more you practice this, the better a patient you'll become for your doctor, and the better patient you'll become for yourself if you can start prescribing for yourself, and the better you'll be able to get this information out of other people that you might be trying to treat, like in your family. So it's just, it's not the typical way we're trained. So it's a training process that takes a lot of practice and a lot of time, and the more you read about the remedies, you'll be like, oh. If you start reading about remedies, you'll know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And we'll keep doing this with cases, so you'll start to learn. You've just learned a lot about what questions to ask in the case of a cold or flu.
Yeah.
The other thing would be fever. When is the fever? Well, we talked about when is the fever better or worse. I also would have asked, but she said the fever was worse. No, the fever wasn't really changing. The fever and cough would get worse after falling asleep. Oh, so we have to go back and go heat, which is fever. Heat, night, aggravates, and also heat, sleep. Heat comes on during. So that means the fever is there. And, okay, so we've got the fever is also worse at night in sleep, so that's important. Fever, worse, sleep. And that's 168 remedies. So, being in my car, my computerized repertory and Materia Medica were unavailable, so I had to use this, and I came up with a remedy, and I told her to take the remedy, take that remedy. I don't think I said how often. I said, give it to her as needed. She's used to homeopathy. She understands what as needed is. And told her to send me an email regarding her son or daughter's progress within the next 2 to 3 hours. When I checked my email, I was happy to see that the patient's fever elevated slightly within a few minutes of taking the remedy, initial aggravation. Good sign. And then she fell soundly asleep for 2 hours. Excellent sign. Not just, especially because in her case, the cough had been preventing her from sleeping. So that was an excellent sign. But anytime you're treating someone and they're like, oh my God, I got really tired and I just slept for an hour, or I slept for 15 hours, excellent sign. The body's going into healing mode. So she slept soundly for 2 hours despite having napped earlier that day without coughing. When she awoke, her fever dropped from 103.5 to 101, excellent sign, and the cough was still much better. I instructed the mother to continue to administer the remedy on an as-needed basis, to repeat it if the cough or fever worsened, and also to give the remedy before bedtime until her daughter was around close to 100% better. Why did I tell her to give the remedy every night before bed until the daughter was better? In addition to as needed.
Because her conditions were worsening when she was going to sleep, so you should probably give the remedy right before
Yes,
she
because it was getting worse before sleep, why not give the remedy before she goes to sleep so she doesn't aggravate during the course of sleep? However, even if she wasn't worse in sleep, we're dealing with an acute condition. So anytime you have an acute condition, if you're still in the process where it's starting to get better and the person's needing the remedy more than once a day, which is typical, always give the remedy in addition to as needed right before you go to bed, because you could otherwise relapse in the middle of the night and wake up and now the condition's worse again. So always give the remedy before bed in an acute condition to prevent a relapse. So upon follow-up several days later, the mother informed me that her little girl had made a complete recovery within 2 to 3 days.